so one of the smartest arguments you can hear consistently on this channel is that the political and media establishment that are up in arms about Donald Trump every single day literally do not care about what he does, only what he says. Who is the genius who first made that brilliant observation? It's our next guest, who needs no introduction, but he demanded one, so we would show his book on screen. Co-host of The Five, host of the Greg Gutfeld Show, and the author of the new bestseller, The Gutfeld Monologues, Greg Gutfeld. There he is.
How you doing, buddy?
So I'm great, and I just, every time you make this argument, and as I said, you were the first person to make it, it's so true. They don't care about actual results, they just care about tone and style and what he says. Why is that?
Well, first of all, thank you for getting dressed up for this interview. I see that's one of your better T-shirts. Here's the deal. He is when he was running for office, all you could go by were his words, right? Because you had all these other choices. And so you could get angry with him, and you could say, I'm for this person or that person, and he's so rude and crude, and he says what's on his mind. But then once he becomes president, you have to decide, okay, enough about his words, let's focus on his deeds. That's the decision I made, because I was critical of him during the campaign. And then when he became president, I said, okay, we already know who he is. We already know what he says. We already know how he reacts when somebody comes after him. He always hits back, which I think that is one of the primary problems with the media, is they're just not used to it. You know, for decades, our media has been focused on mocking conservatives and Republicans and getting away with it. I'd say since the Vietnam War, Republicans have been a punching bag. And this is the first time that the punching bag actually punched back. And I think it's just something that they're not used to. And we're like, we've already gotten used to it. It's now 2 years. We've moved on, right? But they're still kind of triggered by 2016.
It is amazing. The other thing I think is that the deeds don't really matter to them, because most of the people in this situation, frankly, like us, they have very comfortable lives. Everything's fine in their world. It doesn't matter what actually happens, because, it's all going to be fine for them.
It's kind of it's the downside of peace and prosperity, is that if Donald Trump, let's take the example of terror. So right now, we have not been doing much reporting on terror because the Trump administration has been so effective in dealing with terrorist groups. So what happens is we get complacent. And so that allows, let's say the media, it allows people like me more time to focus on words, to focus on squabbles, to focus on silly, titillating material about strippers and crooked lawyers, because we're in a time where we've effectively dealt with ISIS. Now, this isn't going to last forever, because terror always changes, adapts, and becomes more effective in their own tools. But so the curse of an effective administration is that you allow the luxury of chasing other shiny balls.
Exactly. Now, here, in a very, very sophisticated segue, I'm now going to ask you to comment on an example of words turning into deeds. Did you get what I did there? So there was something I came across recently, which was, it's actually from last year, but it was a meeting that the president had with Native American leaders in the Oval Office. And it was just this brilliant example of him. There was a conversation about getting energy out and whether they could overcome regulations. And the president just says, Chief, what are they going to do? Once you get it out of the ground, are they going to make you put it back in there? He just says, get on with it. Just do it. That's his whole attitude. Once it's out of the ground, it can't go back in there. You've just got to do it. I'm telling you, Chief, you just got to do it. To me, having worked inside government, that attitude of just do it is such an incredible revolution in how things work.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? It's probably the experience of being a real estate developer in Queens. When you go to visit a site and you notice that the shelves are off in the bathroom, or the doorknobs are loose, you don't sit there and micromanage. You look at somebody, you point at them, you go, just fix that. Just get that done. There's no ambivalence at all when you're at a construction site. There's no ambivalence. You're not micromanaging. You just see the flaws or the problems, and then you say get it done, and then you expect it to get done. However, he may be too idealistic, because, as you know, in government, there's a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy, and people aren't used to that. But so far, because it seems like he's been he's been better than batting 500 in effectiveness and in fulfilling certain things, even if it's by executive order and things like that. But he has been fulfilling certain promises that he put forth.
Now, listen, there's one more thing we need to do here, very important public service. We are fact-checking Greg Gutfeld.
Yes.
I want you to listen to something you said last week.
You got it.
Let's listen.
I don't know why the rest of us sit back passively and allow even the potential for technology to start giving us orders when we're supposed to be in charge of technology.
Well, the good news is that we can always unplug them, and they all have a battery.
Did you know, Greg Gutfeld, that that is not true? You can't unplug them anymore because a new generation of robots has been developed that feed on dust and human corpses even. They can feed themselves. We can't unplug them. What about that? What are you going to do about that?
I am very pro-robot. I am the Benedict Arnold of the human race. When our robot overlords take over, they're gonna appoint me to some kind of position. So I've always been very pro-robot. The fact is, robots are better at being human than human are better at being robots, which is a confused way of saying robots are great because they don't have any emotion, so they make better decisions. They're not impacted by, like, hunger, or they're not distracted by texts. They're not angry because they got in a fight with a spouse. They are so, they're like, when you're a robot judge is exactly the kind of judge you want. You don't want to judge in a bad mood. Right? So there are no moods with robots.
I agree with that. I just want to close with this. I think it's the best comment from a CEO of any company I've heard on anything. The robot company says, "We completely understand the public's concern about futuristic robots feeding on the human population, but that is not our mission."
You know,
there you go.
He's a robot. With that last part, that is not our mission. Remember he said, that is not our mission? He gave it away. He's actually one of them. We need to open him up. Or let him go.
You nailed it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, sir.
Good to see you.
See you soon.
All right.